All right, here we got a tier list for Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, based on what you want to pick for your major skills. So it's not necessarily what skills are the best or the most useful, but what you would want to pick for your 7 major skills that you get. So let's get started. Acrobatics, while good, I love acrobatics. I love jumping higher. It's just not very helpful, if I'm being perfectly honest. It's good to get jump and escape out of certain situations. You can jump onto rocks, alien runes, you can get certain places. We'll talk about this more later, but really restoration is a better way to jump higher, to really get that high acrobatics where you can bounce off lava or jump and skip certain parts of alien runes or Oblivion gates. So the acrobatics skill as a major won't really let you get acrobatics that much higher than if you didn't pick it as a major. You know, it'd probably be about 20 points higher, 20 to 30 throughout the game. So not really that great as a major skill. I'd say very rarely helpful. So it's in the D tier. Okay, next we have Alchemy. Alchemy is really powerful in Oblivion. I think you should always do Alchemy. You should always make potions. You should always farm everything. However, I would not pick it as a major skill the vast majority of the time because it is pretty easy to level. You can just buy ingredients. You can buy all the ingredients that cost like 2 or 5 or 9. You can go through farms and just get a ton of restore fatigue potions. You can sell everything and you can even buy more expensive ingredients. I think alchemy is incredibly powerful and very easy to level. It also, as a non-major, you know, you can get plus 10 to intelligence or plus 5 to intelligence every level thanks to alchemy and conjuration. So while it's really good, useful skill, you should use it. I would not pick it as a major. Next we have Armorer. Honestly, there is the mage build that doesn't use any armor. But even that mage should be using a weapon that needs to be repaired. And the reason you'd want to pick it as a major is because before you get to 50, if you want to use any magic equipment, you have to go and get it repaired in town every time. And that is such a tedious headache. What a nightmare. You want to get armor to 50 as fast as possible. And if you pick it as a major skill, not only does it start much higher, it also increases 40% faster. So I think this is S tier. You should almost always pick Armorer as a major skill. You know, you don't have to, obviously, but it is absolutely worth it. Even at 75, it increases your power by your armor and your weapon damage by 12.5% because you can repair your armor 25 more health percentage. It's just really good. There's no reason you shouldn't be using this skill and leveling it up. It's governed by endurance, which helps too. So it's just good all around as a skill. And as a major, it gives you the benefit of getting it to that 50 mark quicker, very quickly. And it doesn't level too fast. It's not like it's going to be alchemy where you have a ton of ingredients and you suddenly gain 20 points in it, where alchemy could then cause you to gain 2 levels, which could be frustrating, where armor won't ever spike that quickly. Okay, next we have Blade. Where's Blade? I would say Blade is good for most builds. I like Blade. It's better than Blunt. It's better than Marksman. It's better than hand-to-hand. You're probably going to use a Blade weapon. But the fact is your damage isn't really coming from your weapon. Like, if I'm being perfectly frank. It's coming from your enchantments. And that's why Blade's so much better than Blunt, because Blades are faster. And you can enchant, you can dish out that enchantment even faster. Blunt can be really fun early game, but Blade's really the way you should be going. So it's good. I would say it's good. You're not required, but good. Conjuration, I'm going to put by Acrobatics. It's just so easy to level. You know, if I go to Conjuration, increasing skills here, Conjuration gains 6 experience per cast, and you need about 10,000 to go from 5 to 100. So as you can see, the other schools, Restoration is 1/10 as much experience. Destruction's 1/5 of that, and Illusion and Mysticism are half. Alteration actually gives quite a bit of experience too. It gives 4. but it's just so easy to level Conjuration, even as a non-major. You know, if you just get the specialization, it's 1,200 casts. Even Destruction, as a specialized and a major, it's still more than twice as much casts as Conjuration, as just base, without specialization, without major. You just don't need to make it a major skill because it's so easy to level. It also, if you ever really want to use it, you power level it, and you can do that without it being a major. And if you power level Conjuration, you don't want that to be gaining you a bunch of levels again. Again, that makes raising int really useful. I would say this is very rarely helpful as a major skill just because it's so easy to level. If you want to use Conjuration, I'm not personally a fan, but you just shouldn't pick it even as a major skill, even if you're going to use it. Blunt. Blunt is worse than Blade. You know, I would say, well, you know, if you don't pick Blade, you might as well pick Blunt. So I'm going to put it in the same tier as Blade, but it is worse than Blade. But you should pick one of them, frankly, because if you want to efficient level, which I think is a waste of time, you shouldn't do it. But if you want to, you would use whichever weapon is not your major skill. And if you're not efficient leveling, you just use the weapon that is your major skill. You know, they're both covered by strength. It's nice to have a weapon that does solid damage. You know, you want either Blade or Blunt. Okay, hand to hand. Speaking of that, hand to hand is really cool to RP with, but that's it. You can't enchant your hands, so your weapon damage doesn't really matter. I think at max, let's go to hand to hand. Let's look at it. At maximum hand to hand, you do. Does it say here? Skill benefits. Uses this formula. Hand-to-hand maximum damage is 11 points. And if you fortify your fatigue by 200 points, it goes up to 15. It just... That's garbage. After that, further fatigue. Really? That's strange. Either way, I'm thinking about this too much, talking about it too much. 15, it's garbage. It's just garbage. It's bad damage. It's not good. Fun to RP if you want to be a monk. It gains more experience than these two. It takes less punches, but it just... You put it as a minor skill. If you want to gain strength, you can punch people for a while. But unless you're doing it for fun or for RP, you should never pick hand-to-hand as a major skill. It's just way worse than Blade or Blunt. You know, and honestly, you can repair your weapons when you use those two, which is an advantage. I would count that as an advantage because then you can raise your armor skill, which gains you endurance. Light armor. Light armor is just worse than heavy armor in every way. The one advantage light armor has, the weight, can just be mitigated completely by feather. You know, wearing heavy armor slows you down, and yeah, that's bad. It's really frustrating actually, and it encumbers you more. You need more carry weight. But with feather, it removes the weight of your equipment, and so all that negative side goes away. And also, if I go to, let's go to heavy armor and light armor, the perk. So the master perk of light armor is 50% bonus armor rating, where the master perk of heavy armor is it does not encumber you at all. So at master, they're the same, because neither one encumbers you. But at 99 points, yes, light armor does not encumber you at all, and heavy armor does. But heavy armor is 50% stronger, because light armor, until you get that 100th point, doesn't gain this. So literally from 75 to 100, it's just way worse. In fact, all the way below 100. It is not until you hit 100 that light armor, with this last 100th point, and not if you're fortifying light armor, only if you actually naturally get it to 100, does it match heavy armor in effectiveness, in armor. It's just not worth it. You should just use heavy armor. It's way better. Okay. Now, if you really want to use light armor, you can. I would say for niche builds, yeah. If you're wearing light armor, use it. Illusion. Illusion is really powerful. What does it have? It has charm. It has paralyze, invisibility, chameleon. Illusion is just really powerful. It's pretty easy to level, but not as easy as Conjuration. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's 3 experience per cast. So that difference there, going from 3,406 casts to 2,040, that's a big difference. That is worth making it a major. It will level much faster. Typically, you don't spam it. I don't think it'll make you level too quickly. Hell, here we go. Charm, invisibility, light is kind of worthless. Silence isn't really good for you. It's good for your enemies. Paralyze. The command stuff can be fun and cool, but really the big things are invisibility and chameleon, charm, and paralyze. Those you'll use a lot. They're all incredibly powerful and useful. Charm pretty much replaces speechcraft. Like you don't need it. Conceal or invisibility or chameleon replace sneak. So illusion by itself completely removes the need for 2 different skills. Light can have some funny, unique uses, but you don't really ever need it. And paralyze is also just a very useful skill. So it's totally worth it. Very easy. You don't need it. That's why it's A tier, not S tier. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it's good. It's really good. Heavy armor next. Again, endurance. You don't want to pick armor, heavy armor, and block because that would be all 3. You do not want to pick all 3 endurance skills because then you cannot power level your endurance, and that's kind of the best attribute by far. Like that's actually one you might want to efficiently level. So I would put heavy armor at, I think A, probably below illusion. It's good, it's really good, but it does lower your spell effectiveness. Some people will say that you should just wear robes as a mage. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think even as a mage, just wear heavy armor. You can cast feather. The 5% spell effectiveness. The big thing about that is it sucks for those illusion skills that you can't cast, but you don't really cast those very much. Late game, you can get 85% armor just from your heavy armor. And so you don't need to wear shield enchantments. You don't need to cast shield. You just get it from your armor. Mid game, it's really good because you get a bunch of armor, even if it's like 40%. That's a lot. You can maybe wear 1 sigil stone of a shock shield to get up to 70% armor, which is a big difference. Where mid game without heavy armor, 0 to 25% damage reduction isn't that great. Going from 50% to 75% is a bigger jump. When you have those last points of armor are a lot more powerful because of the way they have like reverse diminishing returns, the way armor works. In early game, we'd say, oh, reverse diminishing returns, well, it sucks at the beginning. You're right, it does, but picking it as a major skill starts it up a lot higher. So you don't have to go through it where it's like almost worthless, only giving you like 8% damage reduction. And makes it level way faster. So you can get to that point where it's really useful faster. And it's an endurance skill. So leveling it up gains you more endurance. It's very worthwhile to use. And again, it'll let you level armor faster if you're wearing armor. You could wear light armor, but I think heavy armor is just way better. Both endurance, it's just better. And you should use it as a major skill because you want to get it up faster. As a skill itself, even outside of endurance, it's worth it. Okay, mysticism. Nah. I would say it's better in light armor because you should be wearing heavy armor, but you don't really need it as a major skill. I mean, mysticism has Soul Trap. It has Detect Life. The Reflect, Absorb, and Dispel can be cool. Telekinesis, unless you're doing like a spell absorption glitch thing, I don't like doing that exploit. It's not really. It's just kind of fun and cool. And spell absorption and reflect damage, reflect spell costs so much. Like unless you're getting to 100 mysticism and trying to play around with that, it's really expensive. But you can get to 100, and they become sort of reasonably cost because at 100 things are much cheaper. Very expensive spells can be manageable to cast when you have 100 skill. So you could do it. It's not really that worthwhile because those are all. If I go back to them, those are all defensive things. And usually, unless you're playing on max difficulty, you don't need spell absorption, reflect damage, reflect spell. Like, the hard part is killing things. And none of these really do that. Soul Trap's useful, but you don't need that as a major skill. You can get it to 25. Buy Minor Detect Life, spam it 50 times, spam it 30 times, and then you can cast Soul Trap at level 25 and never really worry about it again, and just Soul Trap itself will level it up. So you can use it, that's why it's C, but not really worth it. Restoration, this is the most powerful skill in the game. I would say by far. Destruction is also as powerful, I guess, but in a different way, because Destruction is the best for killing people, but Restoration is nuts. With that said, as a major skill, let's go to this. Restoration gains experience so slowly. Even with a specialization and a major skill, it costs over 7,500 casts to get to max level. It's just insane. To level Restoration, you're going to want to use a trainer. Like when you want to get past like 60, really even 50 to get it up, you're just going to start spending the gold at a trainer. If you didn't pick magic specialization, which I think is a mistake, you should always pick magic specialization. Obviously, fighter specialization's got its advantages, but magic you'll see when I'm done with this. The magic skills are the best. Destruction and Restoration are the two strongest skills in the game. Conjuration's really powerful. Alchemy's absurdly powerful. Alteration's really powerful. Illusion's really powerful. Mysticism is interesting and can be powerful. Like where these, many of them are worthless. These, many of them are worthless. You're going to be using your one weapon skill. We'll talk more about that later, though. Point is, Restoration's so hard to level that even picking it as a master isn't a huge advantage. Like it's kind of the opposite as Conjuration. Conjuration you don't want to pick because it's so easy to level already. Restoration is so difficult to level that's like you're just going to use a trainer. Picking it as a major isn't even enough. It's still too difficult to level. Okay, moving on. Oh, by the way, the reason it's the most powerful, I should talk about that actually, is Fortify Magicka, Fortify Skill, Fortify everything. Where is it? You can cast spells to fortify your willpower, to fortify your magicka, to fortify your speed, to fortify your health, to fortify your acrobatics so you can bounce off lava, to fortify your blade to put at 100, to fortify anything you need. When you have 100 restoration, your character becomes insane. Like you've beaten the game. It gets ridiculous. You do have to make a lot of custom spells, and you can do the basic like heal yourself really fast, of course. It's just nuts. It's just absolutely insane. Also, picking it as a major can be useful because you can get some things like Cure Disease faster, but really Restoration at like really high levels is when it gets totally nuts. So picking it as a major doesn't really get you to 100 much faster because you're going to be relying on a trainer. Okay, Security, honestly, even worse than hand-to-hand. Total waste of time. You can just buy more lockpicks. You don't ever... The skill itself doesn't help you. And the reason you pick majors is because you pick skills that let you achieve your goals faster. There's a skeleton key. You don't have to give it up like you do in Skyrim. And there's Alteration, which at 75 Alteration, you can unlock any very hard lock for Magicka. There's like one for the Dark Brotherhood that's underwater, and you can't cast that target spell underwater. Sure. But even if I have 5 security, I could just carry a couple hundred lockpicks. The fences all sell 100 at a time. It's just a very easy to never need that skill. I never do the minigame. I just click auto whatever. I've never picked it as a major, and I've never come across a chest that I couldn't unlock, except maybe the very beginning of the game. Maybe. And even then, like I pretty much never have that problem. Mercantile. Oof. Mercantile. I think Mercantile's pretty bad. However, it is kind of nice early game to have that boost to it. It levels faster. This is the only skill more difficult to level than Restoration. Mercantile is actually the worst. Look at this number of transactions. Like, this is just ridiculous. And if you sell 100 of something, it counts as one transaction. And it's selling. It sucks. Honestly, I feel like they like misplaced a 0 here. Okay, maybe not that much. But this should be like 1.6. I think 4 times as fast would make this skill less annoying. I just could not imagine ever getting this skill to 100 with natural play. It's absolutely ridiculous how difficult this skill is to level. Absolutely hate it. It's probably my least favorite skill in the game. But when you get to 50, you get to unlock some new cool things. It's still, I would never pick it. I have before, but I always regret it. It's just not. Gold isn't really that big of a problem in the game. Maybe early game, which is why it's not terrible, because early game it does help you with gold. Just it's starting, whatever, higher. Yeah, just the fact that it starts higher makes a big difference. Like if I look at classes, you pick your major skills. How much does a major skills give you to start? I should have known that before starting this. I think it's plus 10, right? It might be plus 15. I'm not going to read all that. I'm pretty sure you get plus 15 for starting it. But more importantly, it levels 40% faster. That's really what I'm thinking about. Speechcraft, worthless. Worst skill in the game. You never should use it. You can bribe people. There's like the beggar at the beginning to join the Thieves Guild. Sure, whatever. But picking this as a major might, at the very beginning, save you 40 gold one time. That's it. Get a charm spell. Charm spell completely erases this skill. There's no need for it. Bribe completely erases this skill. It's just garbage. Sneak. I think illusion just kind of makes it not that valuable. It can be worthwhile. I would put it maybe above blunt because you should be using blade. Blunt again is only what you're picking if you didn't pick blade. It has some value. You can use it. That's why it's not in C. It is nice, but really when you're invisible, it doesn't really matter what your sneak is. And when you have chameleon, it doesn't matter what your sneak is. Yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Destruction, most powerful skill in the game. I know I said restoration is, but destruction is nuts. Yeah, and actually, unlike restoration and conjuration, this one's at 1.2. It takes a lot of casts if you don't pick it as a major. But if you pick it at magic specialization and a major, that's not that crazy. That's kind of comparable to illusion and mysticism. It's still a lot, but it's your attack. You're going to be spamming target things. You're going to be touching people all the time. It'll level pretty quickly. I think towards the end, I usually find that trainer where you got to give it the bear pelts. That is worth your time, but if you pick it as a major and magic specialization, it's not so insane how slow it levels. Restoration, I think, no matter what you do, just takes an absurd amount of time. But destruction's twice as fast. I think you cast more spells just naturally because you're killing enemies. So it's not too crazy. And at max level, you can just obliterate things. It does way more damage than all the other skills are capable of doing. You can do 800 damage in 2 destruction spells. When you have 100 destruction, when you have 100 blade and 100 strength, you can do a power attack for 90 damage. There's just no comparison. Even your best sneak attack is maybe doing 100, 200 tops. I think Umbra with times 6, ignored armor, 125 armor, repaired things, and you have more than max fatigue, it's maybe doing 200. That's the best weapon in the game. And that's one attack. One attack. So unless you're doing 100% chameleon, but that kind of breaks the game anyway. If you're doing 100% chameleon, the game's over. There's nothing that attacks you. So I don't ever do that. So this is assuming you're not doing any exploits, any glitches, because just like with mysticism, if you're doing telekinesis on your Atronach to restore your mana, it's yeah, that's not really intended for the game to play that way. You're an Atronach, you're not supposed to restore magicka. Telekinesis is not supposed to randomly restore your magicka. You found a little exploit, good for you. That's not what this is. Not talking about those. Athletics. Maybe. I don't know. It does get you two more fatigue a second when it's up. While you're running. It's 2, 4, 6, right? 2, 4, 6, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if you don't pick it, you probably only get 2 fatigue per running. If you do, you'll start with 4, and you'll get to 6 after not too long. But it still levels really slowly. What does it say? How long do I have to run for? Athletics. Is this time spent running? What the fuck? 56 hours, and I always jump. Even, man, swimming, it's still 32 hours. I, I just, I never level this skill. You play the game levels. It's not an F because like that is kind of useful, getting 2 more magica or fatigue per second when running, because you normally get 10 when you're not running. But I also think I just jump everywhere I go, and every time I get into a fight, I have 0 fatigue, and which makes you do half damage with blade and blunt and marksman, but not destruction. And so I don't really care about that. And I could see a warrior, you want to play a warrior, you want your blade to actually be a good chunk of your damage and not just your enchant. You're not just casting 100% shock weakness and 100% magical weakness and putting a 25 shock sigil stone on your dagger, so every attack does 95 bonus damage. You want your actual physical damage to do a lot. Like, then you do care about your fatigue. I just don't play that way. And I think very few people do, because it's just not as powerful. Marksman, even worse than blunt, is slower. So like you can dish out less enchantments. Like, it's not good. Not totally worthless, but again, if you're being an archer, your damage is coming from poisons. Your damage is coming from your bow enchant. Your damage is coming from your your arrows being enchanted, magical arrows. It's not really coming from even if you're sneaking 3 times 40, you maybe are hitting for 120 once. Sure, at 100 sneak, maybe you can hit them with like a whole bunch of sneak attacks before they notice you. It's not totally worthless, but I think most enemies in this game, just like even at 100 sneak, just see you for whatever reason. Unless you're doing that 100 chameleon thing, which again breaks the game. Like, there's nothing to play anymore if you've done that. Alteration. It's amazing. Should it be A? Maybe it's a low A. God, but it's so good. I love Feather. Feather is the best. If you pick Alteration as a major skill, you can get certain spells really quickly. Feather is amazing. Shield is amazing. Open is fun. It's nice. Water walking's nice. But really, this is Feather. Feather is really why you want Alteration. Even at like 60... Oh, it even says to critic custom. Oh, practice spell. So if I look at Feather, the base cost is 0.01. So here, I gotta go to calculator. So to calculate the spell cost, 0.01 divided by 10. Let's do 100 times 100 to the power of, is that this? Power of 1.28. That's 100 magnitude. So this is the cost to do Feather for 1 second. So times 2 minutes. This is the cost with 33 Alteration skill for 2 minutes of 100 Feather. If you have max Alteration, that's the cost. And it rounds down. It's 8 Magicka. 8. You can just throw that on any other spell you're doing. Like, it is so good. 8 Magicka. It's nothing. So even if you're doing shield, let's say you have a Feather and a shield spell, 0.45. What I say Feather was? 0.01. So it's 45 times as expensive. So you're not doing 100 shield for 2 minutes because it would be this times 45. That's a lot of Magicka. Like, you're not doing 100 shield for 2 minutes. But maybe you're doing 20 shield. Oh, here, you couldn't even... I don't want to do it. But my point is, you could do 10% shield for 2 minutes and 100 Feather. And you could have 2 of those going. And for 2 minutes, you have 20% extra armor and 200 reduced weight, meaning your weapon doesn't weigh anything. And when your weapon doesn't weigh anything, you run way faster. You'll notice when you're playing, when you draw your weapon, you slow down. With that, you won't slow down. And you cast the second one, your armor doesn't weigh anything. You're better at sneaking now because your boots don't weigh anything. The fact that you're wearing heavy armor stops mattering. And you have 200 extra carry weight. So even if your strength isn't quite 100 as quick as you want it to be, who cares? You have a ton of extra carry weight. Okay, last we got block. Block, endurance is nice. And honestly, I like having armor and heavy armor, and so that would make block your third endurance skill. Better, everything's better than Mercantile. But unless you're wearing light armor, if you're wearing light armor and you don't use heavy armor as a major skill, then maybe you could do block. But honestly, even then, block. Well, then, if you're doing that, block is reasonable, I think. But using all three of these is a bad idea because then you can't power level endurance. So that's why I would not pick block. All right, that's my tier list. These are the best ones. Thanks for watching.